Hi, I'm Terry, and I'm back with some more basic piano sessions. This is session 7, and I'm glad you're joining me. We're going to have a little bit of a review about stems on notes, chords, staccato notes, tempo markings, and then we're going to get busy with some new material. So stay tuned. Now we're going to start with some flashcards. Go ahead and see if you recognize these. These should be familiar to you. Notice they're not in order. Kind of mixed them up for you to give you a little bit of a challenge. See if you recognize the symbols that help you decide which notes that you are seeing and reading. I think I took an extra one that time, so I'm going to put one back. Now, when you see notes on the staff and you recognize them and you can read the letter name, you are learning to read music, and that's exactly what we're doing. You're reading music. Some people play by ear, and they're able just to pick music melodies up on their own just by hearing them. But what I am teaching you to do is to read music. All right. We talked about chords in the left hand. The C chord is made up of the notes C, E, and G. And as you'll see in the left-hand corner on the staff, there's a C chord, and in a chord, the notes are written one above the other, so they're all lined up, and they're to be played together. Remember when we talked about melodic and harmonic intervals? Well, these are kind of like harmonic intervals because they are written over the top of each other, lined up very nicely. So you'll see a C chord, and it has a 1 under it, because in C position, C is the 1 chord. Then there's a 5/7 chord made up of the notes F and G, and they are in the second measure. Now, the notes F and G are right next to each other. So that's a good point. When notes are right next to each other on the staff, one's going to be a line note, and the other one can't really be written above it. So it's going to be written right next to it, and the stem will be in between the notes, as you see there. So the 5/7 chord is F and G. And these 1 and 5/7 chords you will see in every key that we learn that's on the circle of fifths that we referenced yesterday. Okay, tempo marks. A little review on that. There is andante, which means a walking tempo, to play slowly. Moderato means to play moderately. Allegretto means to play moderately fast. Allegro means fast. We talked about staccato notes, which is shown by either having a dot under or above the note. Staccato, again, means to play choppy or detached. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about different note values. I'm going to try to bring this up a little closer. Now we are going to talk about notes that have the same time as a whole note. Now we've talked about a whole note. A whole note is worth 4 beats. Okay? If you have two half notes are equal to a whole note. Okay? 4 quarter notes is also equal to a whole note. 8 eighth notes are equal to a whole note. Or 16 sixteenth notes are equal to a whole note. And you'll notice that the eighth notes have one stem or cross stroke joining them. The 16th notes have 2 cross strokes joining them. All right, let's see here. All right, now we're going to talk about the measure rest. Okay, the measure rest means to be silent for a whole measure. And in this example, we have 2 quarter notes. So we have 2 beats per measure. And then we come over to a measure that has no notes. Remember that rests tell you to rest. And so that's exactly what you're doing here. You're resting. Then you have 2 more notes or chords. And then you have another measure that has rests. Same over here. This time signature is 2/4 time. 2 beats per measure and the quarter note gets 1 beat. Over here we're in 3/4 time signature. 3 beats per measure. Here's a measure with 3 beats. 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to rest for 3 beats. 1, 2, 3. No playing. Then you have another measure with 3 beats. 1, 2, 3. And another measure where you will be resting. Then we have dotted notes. Dotted notes mean to add time to the note, extra value. So we can have different time signatures, okay? But here's an example of those different time signatures, okay? In 3/2 time signature, you will have 3 beats per measure, and the half note will get 1 beat. So it's showing you the different time using tied notes is what it's doing. And it's showing you equal rhythms there. And over to the left of that, it's showing you the chords. Let me make that, see if I can get that whole thing in there. Okay. The second example shows you the time signature of 3/4, 3 beats per measure. The quarter note gets 1 beat. The next line is showing you 3/8 time signature, which means that there are 3 beats per measure, and the 8th note gets 1 beat. And the last example is showing you 3/16 time signature, 3 beats per measure, and the 16th note gets 1 beat. I don't want to get too much in depth into that right now, but just know that the bottom number is the beat unit, and everything builds or adds on to that note. We'll discuss that a little more later. Then there are also notes. We talked about notes that are in between the staff. And this is an example of that. I'm just going to pin this right back up here for a minute. And looking at that example. Okay. You see middle C. And middle C is a line note. Okay. We talked about notes last week that were above and below the staff. Okay. Here's middle C. This is A below middle C. This is F below middle C. These added lines and spaces will always be added so that you know which note you're looking at. Because if you just If you just drew the note a little bit lower than middle C and didn't add the extra lines, then you wouldn't be able to count the staff degrees or the letter names to figure out exactly which note it is. Here's D, B, G, and below G would be E. Those are treble staff ledger lines. These are bass staff ledger lines going up, but they're still in the center. C, we're counting by thirds, E, G for the line notes, space notes B, D, F, and A. They probably look very strange to you, and they can be very hard to read. Okay, so here's just an example of added lines and spaces. Ledger line notes. They can be above the staff, below the staff, or in between the two staffs. Okay, what I'd like to do is over here on this other page, we have a song called Warm-Ups. Okay, kind of moving things over here a little bit. You'll see, I think we're going to go to another hand position next lesson. So in session 8, we're going to go to a different hand position. So I wanted to take a couple extra books and show you something a little bit different. I'm going to go down here. You'll see the hand position, C major or C position. That's the same position we've been using. Okay. Now these notes, if you notice, are in both the treble and bass staff, and so they are played together because the notes are one above the other. Okay. Now, one thing that I see that's different is that you see 1, 2, 3, 4 measures, and then it starts a fifth. Now, in this example, they give directions at the top, but what they want you to do is to keep playing. In other words, you play that little exercise, and this is a technique or exercise book, and I use these quite a bit with my students. You're going to play this, everything that you see written there on the lines in the measures, and then you're going to go up a whole octave playing these. It says to continue this pattern up the keyboard on the white keys. So you're going to play a whole octave. You're going to start on C's and keep playing until you get to the very next C, an octave higher. So that's quite a bit. And only the one pattern is written for you, starting on C. So you don't see another, you don't see the rest of the music written. You're just going to have to follow the pattern. And so this is how it would sound. Always turn your keyboard on. Then move up to D, follow the same pattern. Rest. Rest, up to E. Rest. Rest. Now you're going to keep going until you get back up to C, and it'll sound just like the beginning tone. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I wanted you to see what it is, exactly what I'm doing. Now I'm going to go down to the keyboard, and there goes my marker. But what I wanted to get an idea of was of you to see me playing it, so that you can get the idea of it. Okay? So real quick, I'm just going to do a little bit of it. Rest. Now I'm going to keep playing. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, you're going to go all the way and play it an octave higher. Remember, an octave is 8 white keys. Now, you noticed I counted because there were just certain directions written on this book. Again, this is a technique book for exercises. Exercising your fingers is very important. It's a good way to start out your practice. Now, another way to practice is saying the letter names. We've talked about this before. So if I were doing that, C, D, E, F, G, F, G, G, F, E, D, C, D, C. Go to D, D, E, F, G, A, G, A, G, F, E, D. And again, you would go up an octave. Okay? Now that takes quite a while, but it's very good exercise. You're following a pattern. They give you the beginning example, and you take that all the way up an octave. Okay? I wanted to go over that. And quickly, I had one little thing I wanted to show you. I brought a different book this week, and I wanted to play it for you. Okay, it's Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, and I know you all have heard that. Now this one, and I want to show you the keys first, is in middle C position, which means your thumbs, and thumbs plural, will both be on middle C. So I just want to give you a little bit of this. And some of the theory we've talked about, there's some sharps in it. There's some pianos and some. One thing we hadn't talked about is mezzo forte, which means medium loud. So it's kind of in between piano and forte. So just look first, and then I'll show you the music. This is a fermata. And that's supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Even though the sound of it is something quite atrocious. You remember Julie Andrews. Okay, so that's what the music looks like. Okay. Your hands, and we'll get this a little bit later. But your hands are both on middle C, your thumbs, and that's called middle C position. And another thing I noticed is that your fingers change around. So just keep in mind, these finger positions and hand positions I'm teaching you can change. And sometimes your thumb is not always on middle C. Sometimes your second finger is not always on D. Okay? All right, we'll wrap this up. Well, that's it for session 7. I'm sure you're still enjoying it because you're still with me. Keep coming back. I'm enjoying teaching you. We've learned a lot, and I've noticed that the sessions are getting a little bit longer. And if you feel that they're long for you, you can do half in the morning and half in the afternoon. Break it up however you like, just so that you keep enjoying it. Happy playing. See ya.